Hi, hello guys. Welcome to the For Animals for Earth show. I am Brandy Heidi Montague. If you don't yet know me, I'm the founder of For Animals for Earth, and I am joined today by these three fabulous women that I cannot wait to introduce you to, and they're going to actually introduce themselves here in about a minute. We are going to be talking today about how to avoid burnout. And I have to admit, I have been struggling with this for a little while now, like 6+ months. And most of you who do follow the show know that because there was like a whole 6-month break in the show. But I am bouncing back. And I was thinking, a couple weeks ago about what is it that helps me bounce back when I'm feeling really overwhelmed and just honestly kind of apathetic. I will hit a point where I'm just kind of like, I don't really feel like working so hard anymore to live such a quote unquote sustainable life or to try to reach people. And it's hard sometimes. And I thought what really actually, when it gets down to the nitty gritty, helps me bounce back are the people around me, the ladies like you, those of you who follow the show and listen and reach out, every single email or text message, like it really means the world. And that's what actually gets me to keep going. So I had this idea for this panel today because I thought it would just be such a cool way to gain back a little bit of inspiration and to share, you amazing ladies, with everybody who is listening and watching. So these three ladies, I invited them because they truly are people who inspire me. Just watching the three of you over the past, year to 2 years that I've known you, you are able to maintain healthy lifestyles while at the same time you guys grow your passions. And it's been so cool to watch things continue to grow and your ideas come to life. And I know it's not easy. I know you've been balancing like so many different priorities in your life. And so you inspired me. I can't wait for everybody to meet you. So let's get started. We're going to pass the mic around. I'll have each of you just quickly introduce yourselves, like one sentence, and tell everybody where the best way is to come find you online. And then we'll dive into questions and conversation. So Lindsey, can you go first?
Sure. Thank you, Brandy. I just want to first say thank you so much for having me. So excited to be on the show with these lovely ladies. My name is Lindsey Biondo, and I am the founder and owner of Revolt. And Violet Revolt is kind of what started as a passion project, but now a sustainable fashion line featuring plant-dyed fabrics and with a portion of each purchase donated to wildlife conservation. So that's a little bit about me. And you can find my clothing on violetrevolt.com. Trying to limit my use on social media, so my website is the best place to find me.
Perfect. Okay, Annemarie.
My name is Annemarie. I am the owner of sustainablelife.live, which has been a pivot. My name actually changed and my website has changed in the last year. But I realized through what Brandy was saying, through the growth process, I've been in the health and wellness industry for almost 4 decades. I realized that the people who I had been partnering with had different visions and different priorities than I had. And I had to make a shift. So it was a little scary, but I rebranded myself. I relaunched, and I believe that sustainable wellness needs to be affordable. It needs to be accessible. And it doesn't look like a color or a shape or a size or a gender. I believe it should be for everybody. And I'm passionate about spreading that message. So that's a little bit about me. Environmental wellness means, social wellness, nutritional wellness, and environmental wellness, and community. And it just means all of those things together, where I used to think it was really just about fitness and nutrition, and about, recycling a newspaper. I just think it's bigger than that.
Siham.
Hi.
Oh, actually, sorry, Siham. Annemarie, you didn't share where to find you.
I did. I forgot to say. So I do. I'm pretty active on Instagram. It's the best way to communicate directly with me at sustainablelife.live, or also directly on my website, which is sustainablelife.com. So, yeah.
Perfect. Awesome. Okay, Siham.
Hi, I'm Siham. I'm the founder of Wildly Black. Wildly Black is a community-oriented, sustainable fashion brand that's looking to diversify sustainable shopping. And yeah, I'm really excited to be here and have this conversation. I think it's something that is very common for a lot of entrepreneurs and new founders. So I'm excited to get in and see what everyone else also has to say. You can find me at Instagram at Wildly Black. That's the best way to kind of see the work that I'm doing right now. And I'm currently on there every day. So yeah.
Perfect. Okay, so let's dive in. Siham, I'm going to throw you the first question.
Yeah.
In the past, couple of years, what's been the most challenging competition that you've had on your time, and how did you navigate through that?
Yeah, so I would say definitely finding time to grow my business. I made that a priority within the last, I would say, 2 years. And I realized that the work that I was doing outside my business wasn't really aligning with my value and mission, because a lot of what I do with Wildly Black is so relatable and it's based off of experience from a fashion perspective. So I had to take a step back and prioritize some things. And I definitely knew, like I said, that I wanted to make my business a priority. So I had to quit my job. And although that's not what I really wanted to do financially, it just didn't align. It wasn't giving me the bandwidth to do all the other things that I enjoyed in my life. So a big competition was, it was with myself. I had to let the old me go and move into this new phase. And it was difficult, but taking that step back allowed me to put things in perspective and really give me that room to do the things that I needed to do for my business. And also, financially speaking, like what would a job look like for me as I'm building my business? And it really gave me the time to think about that. And it took me 6 months to do it, but I'm finally at a place where I feel a sense of relief knowing that my new job that I currently have right now is allowing me to be myself and have energy to put back into Wildly Black, which, saying it now sounds like a no-brainer, but it took me quite some time to reach this place that I'm at right now. And yeah, it's all part of the journey. And I always try to tell myself that I need to enjoy it. Although when you're in the thick of things, it might not seem that easy, but I was happy that I took that step back and kind of took my time and slowed down a little bit and listened to myself. So yeah.
That's amazing. I was just thinking about how it feels like before taking the step back, it feels impossible.
Yeah.
And then when you look backwards, you go, oh, like that wasn't so bad. And now look where I am,
Yeah.
But it seems like it always feels that way.
Yeah. And I also feel like it's a sign of growth, especially when you feel like you're at a better place. And like I mentioned, it was challenging to let that old Siham, like to let go of that, because so much of what I've been doing, was a part of, it was in my daily routine. So letting that go took quite some time, and that status, that job, and it doesn't happen overnight. And it took some time, but I'm happy where I am, and it was worth that journey and that time however long it took me to do.
Yeah, that definitely makes sense. Lindsey, how about you? Same question.
Yeah, definitely. I know, Brandy, but for Siham and Annemarie, yeah, definitely. I just moved across the country from Michigan to Seattle. So I currently live in Seattle in August of last year. So similar to Siham, I was kind of going through a weird phase prior to that. I quit an old job and started a new job, the one that I'm currently in. To find or to be in a position that more heavily aligned with my values and what I was trying to do. So I got a new job last May, and then the job was located in Seattle. So in August of 2021, I had to make the drive out here. And I'd moved, around like a little bit prior to being where I am now, but never across the country, never being so far from my family, and like this kind of comfort and support that comes along with doing that. So I was pretty much like on my own out here. And so for me, the biggest piece was really navigating being in a new environment, being extremely independent. I mean, I've always been a very independent person, but, getting things situated, like getting my Washington license and my car registered and like all of these things that you don't think about. They were really like eating into my time for a long period of time and stressing me out, and all of these just kind of administrative things that you don't really think about in your day-to-day when you're planning out your goals and your week and whatever. So that to me was like the biggest piece, not to mention coming to a new city, living here, starting a job where I'm working fully remotely. So I'm not like meeting people all the time. I had to go out and like find my friends, find the people that would kind of be my tribe locally. So there was just like a lot going on, a lot of new pieces. And so a lot of things kind of culminated into me being overwhelmed with like everything, just like new job, new city, new friends, new living situation, like new lifestyle out here. And so I actually did this the other day, and I found that this is it worked for me. So maybe it's not for everyone, but it worked for me. And my friends laugh when I told them I did this, because they know I'm very type A list, like my mind works in an Excel spreadsheet type person. And so I use this tool called Trello. I don't know if anybody else has ever used this, but basically like I sat down and all of these administrative things that I had on the back burner, I put them into Trello and like had a place to store like my personal to-dos, like outside of like things that I do in my day job, which I also obviously keep track of. So that's one yes, I will say, to corporate life, teaching me how to make a great to-do list and prioritize things like from an administrative perspective. So that was good. And then in addition to that, though, like one thing I realized after coming out to Seattle is that like there was all of these really cool things that you can do out here that I didn't think about, that I wanted to now integrate into my lifestyle. Like you can surf in Washington, you can go hiking, you can go backpacking, you can go rock climbing outdoors, like all these crazy things that were unbeknownst to me in Michigan. And so like, meanwhile, I'm like trying to also like integrate these new hobbies into my life. So what I also did is I like made a list of all the things that I really enjoyed doing day to day. And then, and that could include like playing guitar, running my business, my day job, hanging out with friends, rock climbing, whatever it is. I went through and I reprioritized and I said like, okay, what are the 5 things that I'm going to focus on for this year? Instead of trying to spread myself so thin, I chose to take control of my time and put it into the activities that like I found the most rewarding. And one of those being my business and trying to grow my business. Another one being, like a physical hobby, like climbing, rock climbing, that I really enjoy. So like really taking a step back and saying like, okay, yes, I could do all of these things all the time, but like, where am I getting the most return in terms of happiness? Because to me, that's the most important thing. And if you're doing things that aren't serving your happiness, you're only disserving yourself. So you should really just be focusing on doing things that at the end of the day, you are happy, excited to do, because it's your life and you are in control. So
I love that. You know, listening to you talk, I am thinking you sound so much like Annemarie. And Annemarie, I was thinking about how passionate you are about making sure that you've got a lot of active things in your life as well to keep it really well rounded. I wondered if you want to talk about that a bit and maybe how that, I don't know if you've experienced like a specific time with burnout or if like many times with burnout and that ends up helping you bounce back.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing. First of all, I realized we've all had pretty major life changes, either through moving or switching companies. Like that's pretty weird, right? Like I was sitting here listening to everyone. I'm like, we all have that in common. So I think I'm the senior of the group, and so I will tell you, at least for me, when I was growing up, I kind of envisioned you'd work really hard and you'd get to a place, and then it would just be like this. Well, that's the biggest myth out there, right? Like nothing is just like this. So my biggest advice to you, if you think that's out there, life is like ups and downs. So it's just interesting. But yeah, I totally agreed. So I think that one of the things in this like social comparison world that we live in, and I so appreciate the fact that all of you have touched on this, is that, you know, if we're not pushing ourselves to the bitter end, you know, and grinding out every piece of energy, you know, we're not enough, you know, in this world of, compare and contrast constantly. And I think that's where burnout comes from, right? The social pressure to produce and produce and produce. And I definitely had that in my life. So I am not immune to that. But I am definitely at a place in my life where doing less provides more, having less provides more. And I've really felt that. So definitely a more minimalistic lifestyle, not just in stuff, but also in activities. Like you were saying, like we all have the same 24 hours in a day. And this was really enlightening to me, right? And we get the choice of how to fill those, right? Like they are choices. So when people say, and we were never allowed to use the B word in our house, which is the busy word, because they're choices. Like those are choices that you're making. And so you can choose to go outside and rock climb for 2 hours, or you can choose to go on a 3-hour bike ride. And those things get put into your calendar, and there's no judgment zone there, right? Like, you know, we're not intended to work, 14, 15, 16, 17 hours a day. And I'm not saying that there aren't times in anybody's life where that may happen, but the majority of the time we are physically and mentally not equipped to do that. So by the time you take your 7 to 8 hours of sleep out, right? And you take your, 8, 9, 10 hours worth of work, there's still a big chunk of day that you get the choice of what to do with. And I definitely am energized from being outdoors. It definitely in nature, grounding, whether it's running or hiking or kayaking or rock climbing or skiing, is definitely where I am recharged. And it is something that is part of my day every day. And sometimes that can mean like sitting on a kayak, right, in the middle of a lake somewhere. But I also recognize that these choices that I have come with privilege, right? Like not everybody has the privilege to hike a mountain or sit on a kayak in the middle of a lake. So I think that when we're talking in general, in particular to women and women in business, you can achieve that anywhere, right? Like you can achieve that sitting on a park bench, or you can achieve it getting outside of your home or taking your lunch outside at work, and, or walking and talking. And I'm curious if anyone else does that, but that's a big thing that I cue my clients on. Like if you have phone calls and you're calling clients, or you get outside and walk and talk or walk around, that has been something that has been super instrumental to me. I'm doing that so much more than I ever used to do. And that's providing some escape too. So that's helped me with burnout. I also recognize I'm in a slightly different season in my life. But that being said, I have relaunched and rebranded this business that was like, it was my business for 30 years. And I was like, yeah, I'm done. And it's been a little scary, but I've kept it in check.
I mean, that's pretty amazing that you can sit here and say you've kept it in check, right? Like, I don't know if I could ever say I've done that with any of the businesses I've launched.
I think it's age. I don't want to keep throwing that out there, but I do think there's a softness that comes with age. Like, you know what I mean? I do. I think there's something. I would not have reacted this way in my 40s. I wouldn't have reacted to COVID in my 40s like this. Now I was kind of like, I felt so bad for the people it impacted, and I could really get there with empathy. And it was so much less focused on me. And I realized the people that were in the thick of it, right? Like, it was harder for them. It wasn't as hard for me.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes sense. And I mean, you're saying age, but I mean, I think also experience, right? Like every experience that any one of us goes through and makes it through helps us realize that, okay, you know, the next time, like, hey, I'll probably make it through again, you know? Yeah, I wonder, Siham, if, so I know both Lindsey and Annemarie talked about this kind of idea of having to narrow down their priorities and say like, okay, these are just the, you know, few things, no more than 5 that are the most important to me. You did allude to this a little bit when you were talking in the beginning, but is that something that's played a big part in your daily life as well?
Yeah, so I keep a planner, and basically whatever doesn't get done during the week, I try not to stress out about it, but I write it in the following week. It might take a few months to check it off if it's something big, but I realize that if I continue to just write the things that are important to me week by week, and if I'm not able to get to it, I eventually do. And then I look back, and it feels good to see that I was consistent and able to keep that, you know, that checklist in my mind, and eventually I'll get to it. So that's, for me, that's what works. I try not to take an aggressive approach for myself, just because I know that I have a tendency to feel like I'm a failure if I set expectations in such a short amount of time. So I've kind of been a bit more realistic. And although it might not be ideal, it does feel better to kind of just skim through my planner, you know, looking back a few weeks and seeing that I eventually got to those tasks. So that's my approach. And I know it's a little softer, but personally, I'm really a laid back person. And my husband and I just talk about like how we're complete opposites, where he's just like, go, 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 go. But I'm a bit more strategic, and I know I move a little slower, but if I have something in place, like a plan, I know I'll get to it. So that's just how I operate and function. But yeah, that's basically how I approach things and try to get tasks done in that way. Just because that feeling of failure kind of might linger longer than I want it to. And it's just going to take up energy that I can kind of use it towards a different space or task that I'm trying to get done. So it might delay things for me.
I think that's really helpful insight, even just into like how you do day to day with the planner and move it along. And I was thinking that it kind of sounds like all 3 of you share this in common, with the fact that you're okay allowing things to play out on the timeline they should play out on, and you're okay being patient. And that's probably why I like love watching you and admire you. You know, I'm still trying to learn how to be that way and like let things kind of play out and happen. Seems like there's a lot to be said.
Yeah, I think Annemarie made a really good point about how, you know, you think you get to a certain point in your life and you're kind of like settled. But what I've realized, even just going through certain milestones that I've done in my own business, I'm happy about it for like a day or two, and then life still goes on and there's other things that you have to accomplish. So I'm realizing, I completely agree with what she's saying. Like, it's never like a moment that you're like waiting for it. You know, life still goes on, and there's other things that you're going to want to accomplish once you get to that point in your life. So yeah, I definitely have noticed that, and I couldn't agree more.
And I also think too, like going on with that, like I thought that too, like once I moved to Seattle, because I wanted to move here since I was like 14, I was like, once I get to Seattle, life will be so calm because I'm in the place that I've wanted to be my whole life, and it will just be coasting the whole way. And it like has not been at all. And so I think that's part of the reason why I've like taken a step back and have been really trying to focus on being like present in each moment. I know that's like a term that's like harped on, but like I truly believe in it, because like your life is passing by like right in front of you. And if you're just waiting for it to slowly like drop off or things to get less crazy, like you're gonna miss like what's in front of you. And so yeah, firm believer in enjoying like what's in front of you, and yeah, taking things slow. Siham, I totally appreciate like that approach.
Yeah.
Yeah, me too. Me too. And, I think along these same kind of lines of living in the present and the day to day, one thing that I did want to get into in our conversation today is how the three of you continue to anchor back into living a quote unquote sustainable life. That really does get into the day-to-day life, right? And making decisions that sometimes are harder than other options, and doing that every day after day, and how to not burn out on that when you look around and it feels like 100 people surrounding you aren't even trying, like not even a little bit. And I'm curious about how you all jump back from that and keep going with being a spokesperson for sustainability and compassion and the environment. Annemarie, answer that one first.
So what was the pivot for me was, and again, I think I used to be super uptight. Like I would, my kids, and this was a long time ago, my kids were the ones that, went to school with a thermos and a lunch bucket. Everybody else had plastic water bottles. And I mean, we didn't have a microwave. There were things, and people, I think, looked at me like that, when I was some crunchy granola. And I thought, what? I'm just trying to like figure life out, and I know something doesn't feel right here. And I think that created some comic relief. But to your point, Brandy, I think that what happened then is that this idea, and I think Lindsey said it, this enoughness, I don't remember who said it, but I think what happens in this world of sustainability, people think that if they can't do a little, they might as well not do anything. And when and this was part of my shift, the reason I picked the word sustainable for my company is the word sustainable means the ability to maintain. So if you're talking to somebody, I'm giving an example, like how to be, like, let's say to be a vegan, and they live on a dairy farm, like that is not going to be a sustainable habit for them. And so one of the things that I started doing is, because I am so far from perfect. I'm not perfect in this, in this world of sustainable anything. But one thing I tried to do is, how can I cultivate habits that are going to work for me, my lifestyle, like what I have access to. And the more you talk to people about that, like affordability, accessibility, convenience has to play a role. And that became so much easier for me, because there were points where I was frustrated, and because I get like you, and I thought, you know what, I can't work from up here. I've got to get to a point where there are gentler conversations and you're creating habits, right? Because I have friends that live off the grid, legit off the grid. And I'm never going to do that. Like, I mean, I'm not even going to pretend to do that. Like, I like a hot shower and I like my electricity once in a while, so I think that realizing there's extremes of everything, and most people just want to be somewhere in the fluffy middle.
Yes. Yeah. So. Yeah. And, that's also, I guess what I'm thinking is, just you pointing out that you don't feel perfect. And I think that a lot of times we look online, especially on Instagram, and it feels like there's all of these people who are living this perfectly sustainable life, and they're off the grid, or everybody just seems like they're doing it so perfectly. And, I think probably all of us could sit here and say, like, no, I think we could probably all echo the same thing that you just said, which is like, we're trying our best and trying to build habits, one simple thing at a time. Yeah, Siham, I'm curious what you would have to add to that.
Yeah, kind of going off of what Anne-Marie was saying, like you got to do what you can do when you can do it. And you have to understand what those things are. So for me, a lot of what I do within my brand and as I speak to a lot of BIPOC communities, because I feel like a lot of the things that we do is based off of cultural experiences. And for me, that's what I can resonate with the best. And you have to be intentional about it. Before I used to, look at everyone else's pages and be inspired, but also ask myself like, oh, how can they do it all? But I've kind of flipped that perspective for myself now as a business owner. And I look at it as a way of distinguishing each other. Like, I'm happy that they're able to live that kind of lifestyle. What can I learn from them? But I can't do it all. I know what I can do best at, and I have to stick to that. And that's what feels more intentional and more natural to me. Because if I think that I can just dabble into every space in sustainability, I'm not going to get anything done. And I think there's a reason why those people are in the spaces that they are. There's a reason why Lindsey does what she does. There's a reason why Anne-Marie does what she does. And there's a reason why what you do, Brandy. And I think we all can bring those unique perspectives in our lives and kind of learn from each other and take pieces. But most importantly for me, it's just like stay in your lane, because that's probably where you can do best. And hopefully people can learn from you. But or else I wouldn't be where I am in my sustainable journey if I was just thinking that I can take part in every initiative. I don't think that's realistic. So, yeah.
Awesome. So well said. Lindsey, do you want to add anything to it?
Yeah, I think that both Siham and Anne-Marie touched on some really important things. I think Anne-Marie, like you mentioned, sort of like simplification earlier in our talk. And like, I think that's really important in the sense of sustainability. Because like one thing that I think like has really helped me is like simplifying my lifestyle so that I don't feel like there's all these things that I need to be considering sustainability when I'm making a purchase. So, like, as an example, like I really don't buy too many pieces of clothing. And for that reason, I don't have to have those decisions of like, okay, is this brand like I'm purchasing from like sustainable and those types of things. So I feel like simplification can really help in not having to make those hard choices. So that's one piece of it. And also just thinking about kind of like the all or nothing mentality. Like if you can't, afford, for example, like a beautifully, like a beautiful glass bottle, that's something, a reusable container for something. If you can't afford that, then like you can't do anything. But I think like everybody has like their own role to play. And there's also definitely the piece of like within your means, like within your ability to do so, because I do feel like sustainability has generally like gotten to a place where it's now like beautified sort of, and people make it kind of like this beautiful iconic lifestyle of like I can afford to purchase brand new bottles that will house all of my dry goods in my pantry, and it's like you don't need to go out and purchase all of these things, and so I feel like that's kind of a big piece of it too, is that like there's really like easy ways to go to the Salvation Army and just find some glass bottles that maybe don't look as nice, but like they do the trick. So it's like kind of taking a step back and saying like, okay, like where is consumerism kind of fitting in here? So that's like a big piece of it too. But yeah, I think I also will resonate with what Siham said about staying in your lane. I think like totally everybody has their own part to play. Everybody has their own interests, own passions, own experiences. And because of that, like we're not all octopuses, like we can't do all like everything. And I think that's something that I struggled with, like after I kind of went down the wormhole of understanding all there is to know, and I still don't know, related to sustainability. There's so many different wormholes that you can go down. And so when you find something that you're really passionate about, say like the ocean, like grasp onto that and like take that and run with it, versus trying to be like the savior for everything. Like the people that, are well known, I'll use Jane Goodall as an example. Like she's well known in kind of the environmentalist movement and the sustainability movement because she focused on her niche, which is primatology, because she was super interested in chimpanzees and she became the expert in that. And I think she adds so much more value focusing on that versus like trying to be, an octopus. So that's something that I am battling with and trying to really like stay in my lane, but I totally resonate. Siham, I think that's a great way to put it. So.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with the octopus analogy. And, so, what I feel like is coming up as a theme through our entire conversation is that, how to avoid burnout. The answer is to really know ourselves and choose our priorities so that they align with who we are and what actually works for us. And then stay in our lane and just, keep delivering on those. It's kind of cool to think about how that thread really went through the whole conversation today. Thank you, ladies, so much for taking the time to jump on here, chat with me, chat with all of our viewers and listeners. I know that all three of you would be more than happy to hear from anyone who wants to reach out and connect. So in the show notes, which will be at foranimalsforearth.com/show/71. That will have links to all of the different places to reach these ladies, including what they said was their favorite spot. And also just, links to anything that we mentioned today and being able to watch the video and listen to the audio. So is there anything that anybody else wants to add before we wrap up?
I just have to say that this has been so inspiring. You guys are awesome. I mean that so sincerely. I'm super excited for all of you and your journeys. And I'm so glad that you said that, Lindsay, that you kind of put the, cross the T and dotted the I, that we can't be all things to all people. And I really believe, like, when you're thinking of why burnout doesn't happen as much for me, I honestly think it's because I surround myself with people who are better than I am at almost everything, and that I'm always want to be their cheerleader. So, and that, because I'm not in competition with all of you, and I think that's what happens, right? The minute we start thinking we're in competition with each other, but you guys have blown me away. I'm so pumped up right now. So thank you. You added so much value to my life.
I will resonate with that. Thank you so much for having us on here, Brandy. I know when you and I originally connected, every time I talk to you now, I have an instant jolt of energy. I want to go run a marathon or something. I'm so ready. So yeah, it was such a pleasure to chat with all of you. And I think all of you on your respective journeys are doing amazing things. So keep doing that. And I agree that it's the people that will propel you forward. So I'm so happy to connect with people like you guys. So thank you for having me.
Yeah, I appreciate all the insight. I've definitely learned a lot, and I know we use the word enough, but I just want to share a quote that I found in a book by Elaine Welteroth, who was the ex-editor-in-chief of Teen Vogue. She had a book actually called More Than Enough, and in there she said that nothing good comes out of when you don't grow. When you don't nourish your soul. So yeah, I just wanted to end that there. And yeah.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you all so much. I echoed the same things. I mean, the amount of inspiration that comes from every interaction that I have with each of you, and especially all four of us getting to like bring our minds and our energy together today is really special. So I really thank you guys for coming on and doing this. Thank you, everybody who's joined us to watch and listen, and we'll be back soon. Thanks. Bye.